Hey guys, welcome into the 14. I'm Nick Cole, and we're breaking down each of the SEC football games in Week 13 from a betting perspective. Today, we're talking about the Florida State Seminoles visiting the Florida Gators. This game's going to be on Saturday, November 27th at noon Eastern Time at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium in Gainesville, Florida. It's going to be televised on ESPN. From a betting perspective, Florida opened as a 2-point favorite. And as of the recording of this video, the Gators are favored by 2.5. The total for the game opened at 59.5, and that has moved to 59 as of the recording in this video. I'll bring in our betting analyst, Christopher Smith. Christopher, this game I can remember being must-see TV for many years, but maybe not so much in 2021.
Yeah, I guess if I'm remembering right, I think Florida State might have broken a long bowl streak in the last few years, but both of these teams are sitting on 5 wins. So, at least they avoid the embarrassment and the misfortune of maybe both of them missing a bowl game, which I don't know that I remember the last time that's happened. It's got to be forever, but kind of embarrassing for the state of Florida with Miami not doing so hot right now either, and even UCF is here in Orlando is not doing so great. So at least one of these teams has to win, and I guess that's something to look forward to. But let's try to make some money on this matchup. Why don't you tell us about the weather and the injuries and get into Nick's news and notes?
Sure. So let's start with the forecast in Gainesville on Saturday. Actually, it's going to be partly cloudy, and the temperature at kickoff is going to be in the upper 50s. We move it into the mid 60s by the end of the game, but still for Florida standards, that's pretty cool for a November afternoon. We should have winds at 4 to 6 miles per hour and not much chance of rain there. On the injury side of things, we're actually pretty clean at this point in terms of new injuries. Not much information coming out of Tallahassee or Gainesville on anything that we didn't already know about. Obviously, Florida's been dealing with Anthony Richardson's had their backup quarterback there has had some issues that have kept him in and out of games. That brings me to the news and notes, because I say that kind of dismissively because Florida's sort of winding down a very tumultuous season here. Dan Mullen is out as the Gators head coach. You've probably already heard that news by now watching this video, but an overtime loss in Missouri in Week 12 was the final straw for the Gators' embattled head coach. And things have really fallen apart in Gainesville this season, to be honest. And it happened really fast. The Gators looked like they were a top 10 team on the brink of beating Alabama in September. And now they've lost 5 of their last 7 games, and their wins in that stretch are against Vanderbilt and Samford at home. So not exactly calling card wins, even in the ones they have managed to win in the last couple of months. Greg Knox is going to be the interim coach for the Gators in this game, and he served in that same role at Mississippi State for one game after Dan Mullen left there to take the Florida job. And actually, that game was the Tax Slayer Bowl, where he beat Louisville and Lamar Jackson. On the Florida State side of things, I would just say a lot of people may have tuned them out that watch us, may have tuned them out after they started the season 0-4. And they've actually come a long way in recent weeks, maybe trending a little bit different direction than the Gators, right? If you're like me, you probably wrote them off after they lost a game to an FCS team in Jacksonville State in Week 2. And ultimately that they spiraled 0-4. But they've won 5 of their last 7 games, where Florida's lost 5 of their last 7. Florida State has won 5 of their last 7. And that includes wins against North Carolina, Miami, and Boston College. Mike Norvell is actually 16-4 in the month of November as a head coach. So maybe he just saves his best for the end of the season. And last thing I'll mention before I hand it over to you for the betting analysis, Christopher, the Sunshine Showdown is here. We mentioned it in the opening a little bit, not necessarily what it has been maybe in the 90s with Spurrier and Bowden with national championship implications for this game, but it is still a heated rivalry game that will bring the attention of the state of Florida, and the players in it want to win it. And you mentioned it earlier, there's a bowl appearance on the line here. So a little bit different stakes, but still something beyond playing for pride. You're playing for being the best team in the state, being the team to advance and get those extra practices, get those extra opportunities to impress a new coach for Florida. And then for Florida State, obviously, that to get to a bowl game after an 0-4 start would be a huge bump up for their program and Mike Norvell. So all that on the table. Christopher, how are you making money betting this game with such a close line?
Yeah, you mentioned such a close line. The funny thing is that if you're in a state where you have access to DraftKings, you could have gotten Florida State plus 10 at the end of last week, so less than a week ago. So that's a wild swing in just a few days. And part of that reason is because Florida is 0-5 against the spread and 1-4 straight up since they beat Vanderbilt, which I think we mentioned at the time was a really horrible 42-0 win, which basically means the score should have been a lot closer than that if you watch the game. And that should have been a sign that Florida was maybe a good team to bet against. I recognized at the time how bad that the game against Vanderbilt was, but didn't bet against the Gators as soon as I could have or should have. But like you mentioned, Florida State being 5-2 in their last 7, and their 2 losses were good losses, sort of with Clemson and NC State. Florida is minus 107.5 against the spread. Like if you compare the final spread to the actual score, and you kind of aggregate all of the games, Florida is almost minus 110 for the season, even though they've actually covered some spreads. And only Indiana, Temple, and Florida International are worse. And we most of you know what those programs have gone through this year. And shockingly as well, Florida is failing to cover the spread by nearly 21 points per game in the last 5 games. So if that's not a bet against team, then I don't know what is. They've also scored between 7 and 23 points in their last 3 SEC games. And there's just no way that this team is prepared to beat FSU through the air with Emory Jones right now. And Florida State also has the edge when Florida tries to run the football, if you look at the stats and the numbers there. So, Florida is worried about finding its next coach and figuring out who's going to play on the team next year, what changes are going to come in the future. And Florida State is worried about getting to a bowl game. Not that Florida wouldn't play in a bowl game, but I think their focus and their priorities are elsewhere right now, while Mike Norvell and his team want to kind of change the narrative that, hey, we got hot at the end of the season. We made a bowl, maybe won a bowl, potentially got to 7 wins. And so I think that would be good for them in terms of narrative leading into next year. And in this case, I actually think that the game being in Gainesville and Florida getting the traditional bump for home field advantage may inflate the spread falsely toward Florida, and actually may be good if you're an FSU backer, just because I don't know that a rivalry game against an in-state opponent, when you may have had your most disappointing season or one of your most disappointing seasons in a few decades, is really going to rile your fan base up to go nuts. I mean, not that Florida fans won't care about beating Florida State, but I don't know that you're going to get the traditional, swamp edge that you may have seen in some recent years. So maybe some false value that Florida is gaining in the marketplace because of that. But Nick, why don't you tell me who you're betting on this game and whether you have a nice little Thanksgiving gift to give everybody out there?
I do have a gift for them. It's a rivalry week special here with Action 24/7 Sports Book. They're a sponsor of this show, and they've got a good deal for new customers. For a limited time, you can get your deposit matched 100% up to $800. So if you sign up today and make your first deposit using code SOUTH14, that's SOUTH14, Action will double your money up to $800. Download the app or visit action247.com to get things started. Action 24/7 is by Tennesseans for Tennesseans, and you've got action. Christopher, this is a type of game that I really have a hard time making picks on. So I doubt this game will make my card in any way, shape, or form on Saturday. But for the purposes of making picks for our show and seeing it through, I'm going to take a little bit of a counter take on the Gators right here. I've lost with betting on them for most of the season, but I'm going to come back to the well one more time, and I'll tell you why. I still think that there is a top 10, top 20 type of talent team in there. And sure, things have not gone their way and things have spiraled out of control. But with Dan Mullen being fired, I think there's actually some case to be made for like a big weight has been lifted off the shoulders of a lot of these guys. The losing streak doesn't really matter anymore. The way that they failed to perform in some of these games, most recently Missouri, doesn't really matter anymore. And they can actually just go out there and have fun and focus on their hated rivals. And in some ways, I think Greg Knox might be a good guy to lead them to this win. And it's weird to say, it's almost like I'm trying to pump up an underdog here, but I'm actually laying 2.5 points in the process of this. But give me the Gators, but give me over 59. I think we're going to see a lot of points in this game. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think that if the sort of look ahead lines and the power ratings that all these sports books rely on, if you would just, like the college football playoff, they start with a blank slate every week, right? But they know they're going to get questions if they make a move that doesn't make sense from one week to the next based on the results. And I think you're seeing something sort of similar here in the marketplace with these lines. I think if you legitimately just dropped in somebody from the past or the future and said, you know nothing about like what the lines have been all year. Here's what Florida is right now. Here's what Florida State is right now. What should the line be? I think you would have Florida State as a favorite. I think they deserve to be a favorite at this point in this game. So I think part of the line value is Florida being at home, and Florida, like I mentioned, they were a 10-point favorite in this game just last week. And so the market has adjusted big time, but I don't know that it's adjusted enough based on how both of these programs are currently playing. So I'm going to take Florida State plus 2.5, and I'll go over 59 for not really a good reason other than I've taken plenty of unders this week in other games and figured I'd throw an over in there, but it's really a coin flip for me, not really looking to bet on the total. Probably not looking to bet on the side when I look at my final card for this weekend, but I'll go. We'll both go with the over. Nick's taking Florida, and I'm taking Florida State. For Nick Cole, I'm Christopher Smith with the 14, and we'll talk to you later.